to the Football Fun Factory podcast. We've got a brand new format for Series 4, and we've got the introduction of a couple of spinners that you may be able to see if you're watching on YouTube. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to spin this wheel to find out who the judge is going to be. We've had 3 series so far. The first judge was Judge Luke, second judge was Judge James, and then we had Judge Johnny. So every single week we're going to have a new judge. Let's find out who it's going to be. The judge this week is...
Yes!
Judge Johnny!
Well done, John. Congrats.
A new series, but the same judge. I feel like I might have been stitched up here, lads.
It's the luck of the draw, isn't it? Luck of the spinner. I wanted to be the judge this week. I've not done it for ages.
Well, anyway, I'm going to get straight into explaining our slightly new format. So behind me, I have a spinner with lots of different statements within football coaching and grassroots football. And what's going to happen is I'm going to spin the spinner, and we're then going to have a bit of a debate, similar to as before. Chaddy and James will both then fight their corner as to who gives the best answer for the statement. We'll then hear both, we'll then quiz them, and then I will decide as the powerful judge. But let's start with the first spin of season 4.
Exciting times.
All right, the first one, perfect football conditions. Luke, go.
Perfect football conditions. I think for me it would be a little bit of a damp pitch, but not actually raining at the time, so you can get that sort of whip off the surface when you're passing the ball in. Probably not too hot, a little... around 12-13 degrees would be perfect for me. A grey sky, not sunny. I get sunburnt really easy. I know you do as well, James. You probably agree with that when it comes to your turn. But yeah, that's the perfect conditions for me. Dry, but a wet surface to zing the ball along.
Interesting. James, perfect conditions.
Mine would be everyone's best memories of playing football, I think, are when it's absolutely smashing it down with rain. You're caked in mud. You come off at the end of the game and you look like we're in a brown kit. For me, perfect football conditions is smashing it down.
Cool. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to delve a little bit deeper into Chaddy's answer. We're going to quiz him. Me and James are both going to quiz you, Chad. Tell us a little bit more about your early memories then in that weather condition.
I think just going outside in the garden, to be honest with you, because my mum wouldn't let me. A lot of the time, if my mum was at home and it was raining outside, I wouldn't be allowed to go outside and play football. But when it stopped, I'd be straight out there, and I loved it when the grass was a little bit wet and I used to smash the ball, drive it, and it just have a little whip on it, and I just loved those conditions. Playing in games at school, I remember at lunchtime, sometimes we weren't allowed on the field when it was wet, when it was raining, but as soon as the rain stopped, we were allowed back on the grass. And I just, fantastic memories of it being 12-13 degrees outside. A grey sky and a wet surface.
The bit that I'm really struggling with is how passionate and enthusiastic you are about mediocrity. You're talking about like 12, 13 degrees, average temperatures. It has been raining, but it's not really... It feels like a bit of a half... I can't say what I was going to say, but a bit of a... I don't know. Halfway house.
Yeah, but what's average for one person is amazing for others, and for me, I love it when it's 12-13 degrees outside. It's my perfect temperature.
12-13 degrees.
A wet grass. That's where I love playing football.
Do you not find when it's a little bit wet, you lose your foot in and...
I put my long studs in.
Sure.
That's why I like to wear studs as well. That's when you get in between and you're sort of... I don't know, it's been close to a ground frost, sort of 3-4 degrees. You don't want to where you
That's enough detail. JC, talk us through then. Obviously, if it's chucking it down, surely it's not that enjoyable if you've got freezing cold hands. I
think it's all about memories for me. When I think back, genuinely believe this, when I think back to football participation as a child, my best memories are those games where the weather was just absolutely awful, and you just run around, you don't care at the time, you absolutely love it. You're the people stood on the sidelines, the parents watching, it's pretty awful, like the coach is probably pretty fed up and it's probably their worst game of the season, but for the players it's their best game of the season. Slide tackles in the mud, absolutely love it.
Yeah, but the slide tackles on the slippy grass when it's just wet, you don't want it to be raining, it ruins the game for me. You come off, you're freezing cold, can't go to school on Monday, you got the shivers. It's strange what you're saying there, strange.
To be honest, I think I've heard enough. I appreciate both your points, but for me, if I had to pick between the two, I would without doubt go for Luke Chadwick's average slap bang in the middle, 12, 13 degrees. Mainly because I don't like getting wet and cold. So, Luke, you win that round. So you are 1-0 up in the new format.
Chadwick 1, cutting 0.
Nice. Cool. Right, we're going to spin the spinner again for round 2.
Ooh. So tense.
All right. The worst position on the pitch. James Cutting.
Easy. Goalkeeper. Worst position on the pitch. So if you're winning games, you're winning 5-0, boring, don't get a touch of the ball. Like you're the odd one out. Nobody else in the team is on your page. You've got a team of defenders, a team of midfielders, a couple of strikers. You're the only goalkeeper. And if you're getting beat 5-0, that's terrible too. So it's just no winning for the GKs for me.
Cool. Interesting. Luke Chadwick, worst position on the pitch.
For me personally, I'm going to go with left back. I played right back a couple of times. I had to fill in there, not from the start, at the end of a game. And I used to really struggle with knowing. I just didn't know the position at all. I didn't know where I should stand. I couldn't defend particularly well 1v1. So I'm just thinking about that. But I'm right-footed. So I think it'd be even worse if I played at left back. So my worst position, for me personally, left back.
Okay, interesting. Right, so now, same format as before. We're going to start by sort of delving a little bit deeper. So, JC, what about if you're a goalie and you pull off the winning save in the last minute and you're the hero?
I think that in itself, in that one isolated situation, is a great feeling, no doubt. But how often does that happen? You know, like if your goalkeeper goes throughout the season, they might have a couple of games where they play really well, make a load of saves, they're player of the match. But there's so many other games and so many other times where you make one little mistake. If you're centre midfield player and you give the ball away, then you're not penalised for it. You're unlikely to be penalised, but you could do that 5 times in a game and get away with it. If you let a ball slip through your fingers as a goalkeeper, doomsday scenario.
I'll let you into a little bit of a secret now. You might know, you might not, but I am actually a fantastic goalkeeper. I probably could have made it as a professional, as a goalkeeper, and played a few times for my local team, Barrington, as a goalkeeper, and I absolutely loved it. There's something about it feels different to playing outfield.
Is this part of the format, Judge?
Yeah, carry on, Luke.
Okay.
Go on.
Okay.
I'm just trying to put my point of James saying it's a terrible position.
I'm thoroughly enjoying your point. Carry on.
The feeling about that anticipation of the ball coming towards you and making a save, and for me, this is the point I'm getting at.
Okay.
I think your opinion is completely wrong.
Come on then, Charlie. Tell us a little bit more about your feeling that the left back position is the worst on the pitch.
Yeah. So I'm taking that just for me personally, it would be the worst position for me to play. Like I say, I'm not a defender. I played centre half a couple of times, and that wasn't that hard because you're sort of central, you know the position you should be in. But when I played right back, I really struggled of getting in the right positions to defend a winger who might be running at me, and I think that would be even harder for me being a right-footed player playing as a left back. So that is my worst position.
I don't even need to ask any more questions because I've made my mind up. I've got it clear in my head who the winner of that round is, and without doubt the worst position on the football pitch is a goalkeeper.
Yes.
So that makes it Chadwick 1, Cutting 1.
Ooh,
congratulations.
Tense. Thanks very much.
It goes into the last round 1-1.
Oh, that's why James got the...
Yeah. No?
That's why you got the first one.
I think, just quickly, before I do the next spin, I know everyone's eagerly anticipating it. I do think being a goalkeeper, there's just so much pressure, isn't there? And like you say, centre mids can make 5 mistakes and you might have someone moan in your ear, but ultimately doesn't result in a goal every time. Whereas if you're a goalie, all the pressure's on you.
Well, oh, sorry.
Don't want to hear it, Chad. Ready? The third and final spin to see who the winner of the first podcast.
How you find the new format, Chad? Enjoying it?
Yeah, enjoying it. Enjoying the judge, enjoying the spinners.
Right. Best way to be a role model in coaching, Luke Chadwick.
I think the best way to be a role model in coaching, the one word that I'd use is enthusiasm. I think if you've got that as a coach, particularly when you're coaching young children, it sort of rubs off on them. I think there's nothing worse than seeing with a coach or watching a coach that doesn't seem like they really want to be there. When you see someone full of life, full of energy, sort of engaging with the children really well, I think that's the most important thing as a coach. I remember when I first started coaching, that's what I was like. It was all about energy, enthusiasm. Probably the more that I learned about coaching, the more I was concentrating on specific points and whatnot. I think that took away somewhat from the enthusiasm that I started with. So for me, enthusiasm's the key to be a fantastic coach.
James, same question for you. Best way to be a role model in coaching?
It's, for me, the best way to be a role model is to be professional in what you do. Now, most people might think that being professional is aligned to development and progression and academies, but professionalism just covers off so many different things, I think. So being professional might be about how you then help other children up from the floor, should show great sportsmanship. Might be about how you dress, how you make sure you wear the right attire and footwear and equipment and all those kind of things. I just think professionalism covers off so many different aspects of coaching and role modelling to children.
Cool. So delving a little bit deeper then, Chaddy, why do you think children, as looking up to a role model in a coach, why do you think it's important for them to see the coach being enthusiastic?
I think it just, like me, even as a professional player at 30 odd years old, it still inspired me to see a coach. I speak about this coach a lot, a guy called John Gorman. He was the best coach that I've ever worked with, and he was an older guy. He must have been over 60 years old, but he still had that burning energy and enthusiasm about him, and that rubbed off on me and my teammates just seeing that. And I think going back to my younger days, I remember my first coaches, and I remember that it seemed like they loved being there. And I think when you see that as a child or as a player within that session, it makes you feel a little bit special, that they're buzzing, that they're coaching you and your team to play. And I think it's always been something that's meant a huge amount to me to be enthusiastic and to see. I've always sort of got so much respect for people that have got a huge amount of enthusiasm.
Cool. Interesting. JC, any questions for Luke?
To be honest, I've got no questions. I kind of agree, and I'm thinking about conceding.
Oh my
no,
that's
the first episode of this. You can't concede on a new concept.
But Luke, with the Football Fun Factory, sessions are all about enthusiasm, fun, and enjoyment, and I completely agree with you. So whilst professionalism, in my view, is important, I can't go against what I feel.
I'm sorry, but I'm the judge, not you. I've got the wig, I've got the gown, and I'll make the decision.
You can't. You don't know just to win. You can't just give him the victory.
Reverse psychology.
I'm picking Luke, and I think
professionalism.
We're the Football Fun Factory, and enthusiasm is what we're all about. I agree. I think both are really key points and important ways to be a good role model for the children you coach. I think I do agree with some aspects of the professionalism. I think it was a good catch-all. I think there's a lot of things that filter into it, but for me, enthusiasm is what it's all about for coaches, because that rubs off onto the children that you coach. Because, as I always say, energy is contagious, so make sure yours is worth catching.
You weren't the first person to say that, though.
I was.
You read it, John.
No, I don't read, Luke.
What are the prizes?
Anyway, so that brings to the end of the first new look of the podcast and the judges part of the podcast. And Luke, you are the winner, but there are no prizes in this new look. You just get a pat on the back and a well done, mate.
That's enough for me.
Perfect. Cool. Well, I'm going to get out of this gown and wig. I'm going to go to everybody's favourite part of the podcast, which is still saying the same.
Chatty chats.
Chatty's questions.
Chatty's questions.
So my question, Chad's linked to the topic that we were just talking about, enthusiasm. So you'll have played with all sorts of different players throughout your senior career, professional career. Who was the most enthusiastic, just someone that's just had enthusiasm and energy that rubbed off in the dressing room?
Yeah, it's a brilliant question. There's two that spring to mind. The first one would be Paul Scholes, like in terms of
Really?
the enthusiasm to play football.
Okay.
Like quite a really nice bloke, quite quiet, but you could just see it in him. He just loved going out and playing every day. Like he'd just always want the ball in training. It'd never be an off day. He just loved playing football. And the other one in that same sort of class of 92 that came through would be sort of David Beckham, with the enthusiasm to continually improve, the enthusiasm to practice every day more than anyone else. So they're the two, maybe, I can't think, like they're the two that just sprung to mind. I'm sure I played with a huge amount of other really enthusiastic players, but they're the two people that sprung to mind when you asked that question.
I reckon he's just name dropping the two biggest names that he's got.
No, I was with Scholes the other day, and I was saying to him, like, you are one of the most enthusiastic players.
Yeah, very good.
I just like the sort of in front of David Beckham. It's just sort of David Beckham.
Sure.
Bex.
Cool, right. My question, because I actually thought you were going to go down a slightly different route with your answer, Chaddy. My question is, what I wanted to find out was, who is like the biggest character that you've played with?
The biggest, let me think. I mean, that is...
It's quick fire, Chad.
I know, yeah, but you ask such hard questions.
First person that comes into your mind.
I think, but again, another player for Manchester.
Here we go.
United.
Giggsy.
Did I say that I used to play for Manchester United?
I didn't know. No.
So just repeat it one more time. Sorry. The
biggest character.
Schmeichel.
Roy Keane. Like in terms of a character, a leader of a group of people, the way that he captained that team, the character that he showed to perform day in, day out, to drive the standards every day. Not a character as sort of having loads of banter all the time and sort of that sort of thing, but as a character, I'd probably say Roy Keane was the biggest.
What about biggest personality?
Biggest personality? I'd probably say... When I was at Burnley, there was a number of lads in the dressing room that were lively. A guy called Glenn Little and Robbie Blake. They were sort of fantastic personalities, very, very funny blokes. When I was at MK Dons, we had a player called Jude Sterling who was like a huge personality with a sort of what he said. There was loads over the years, but they're probably the funniest that spring to mind at the moment.
Nice.
Great.
Perfect.
Who's going to finish the episode then in the new format?
You?
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for joining us for the 31st episode of the Football Fun Factory podcast, the first in the new series. It's been a resounding success, I think we'll all agree. See you next week.